So I have finally maxed out all classes. The last one was the Necromancer, and I want to talk a little bit about the overarching theme of the beta, which is nerfs, 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 and how the Necromancer is trash. You would not believe there are so many videos out there and so many posts talking about how the Necromancer is trash. What I really think is happening is people see how strong it was before, which was way above baseline. How many times did people talk about how broken the Necromancer summons were? And then now they're saying they're trash, when in reality, I just think that it's well balanced. Like, Blizzard did a good job here doing balance for a lot of the different classes. Although I do think that some of the numbers can be low on some classes, Necromancer is not one of them. So for those of you that played the previous betas, and have played this one, there was a key change that Blizzard made to any of the summonal type characters. So if you played the Druid and you play the Companions, the same thing applies there. And that is that they've massively reduced the overall tankiness of the summons. Now, in reality, if you look at the data mine, they've actually increased the life. However, they've decreased the potential max HP, I guess you'd say scaling damage that they wouldn't take. And overall, what ends up happening just through pure testing, and you could see it off basically everyone's video or everyone's post, is that generally speaking, your summons will die. Whereas before, they hardly would. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing, in my opinion. Right? You're free to disagree in the comment section down below. Because what was happening with the Necromancer before is that it was blocking bosses, it was soaking up every single damage tick that you could possibly take, and you were basically unkillable while still being able to dish out massive damage. Keep in mind that the Necromancer's Bone Spear, which is what I'm running currently, actually got a pretty big buff. Now, Corpse Explosion did get a nerf, but despite that, Necromancer has been the highest DPS class out of all 5 with the proper no build, no aspects at least. Proper build, no aspects. There are some classes out there like the Rogue. If you get the proper Blade Dancer's aspect, you're going to start blasting. But at least for no aspect builds, which is what I've been trying to focus on, since a lot of people, the drop rates are pretty low, and you're not going to be farming legendary spots or corpses in Core Dragon during the main game. You're going to be going through the campaign. So I wanted to get more of a realistic aspect on what that's going to look like. And Necromancer is super high damage. And the Necromancer summons still fulfill their role. And you can see here, I am currently using a summon type build, because for those of you that don't know, the Book of the Dead allows you to sacrifice these for increased damage or increased crit or increased whatever it is for whatever stat you specifically want. But I've actually swapped over my skeletons, and I wanted to swap over my mages as well to bone, but I cannot due to the fact that they require level 22, so we don't even have access to the golems. But I've swapped over my skeletal warriors to defenders because that is the goal I'm going for, right? I'm using them as meat shields, and they do exactly what I want them to do, which is cover for me while I blast them down with my bone spear, right? That is the ultimate goal, is to use them as tanking mechanisms. Now, this is obviously not including the fact that I could go all in on a summoner build. And that, although it may seem not that great, keep in mind that you still have to put points into skills on the way down. Diablo 4 doesn't even give you the option to go all summons. And typically here, and when we go down here, there are a lot of options for potentially like summon options where you get like Skeletal Mage Mastery or Skeletal Warrior Mastery or Bone Golem, I believe down here somewhere where you have Golem Mastery, right? These are more focused in on the summon aspects. To get there, you have to put points into your basic ability and your core skills. So no matter what you do, you're going to have summons or potentially sacrificing them for extra caster power, but you're also going to have basics, skills, core skill, and any other additional traits or whatever you would like to run. Which means that they cannot have you build a pure summon necro. They cannot have the baseline summons be too powerful because you're going to have a slew of abilities in combination with those summons. And that's what ended up happening, or what ended up happening in the previous beta, was that not only did I have the same power, actually potentially a little bit less power, because for those of you that don't know, the Bone Spear here, the ricochet actually deals more damage now. So when I cast it on a wall, for example, that shoot back actually does more damage now. So if I have that, which is more damage now, and I have the same skills as I had before, but we had the same summons as we had before, we would still have the same problem, which is that Necromancer is broken, right? And to be fair, a lot of people, I personally felt like the Necromancer was the most broken class in the betas, and that's what I claimed in my previous videos talking about what I felt and my final impressions. But a lot of people put the Sorcerer a little bit above the Necromancer, but felt that the Necromancer was far tankier and far more survivable, which is a general sentiment. And now we actually have sort of a proper, as you say, gameplay mechanic, which is that you actually have to interact with your summons rather than just having them walk around being damage sponges while you didn't have to revive them, you didn't have to heal them, you just had them permanently around you. I think this is a far, far better change. And again, the Necromancer is one of the easiest leveling classes because the skills themselves did not change at all, for the most part, in terms of the damage numbers. Besides Corpse Explosion did get a pretty sizable nerf, roughly about 30% damage decrease from what it was before. And that is because, well, Corpse Explosion costs 0, and actually, in fact, if you have proper traits, generates you essence, which you can see here when I Corpse Explode, I'm actually generating essence, which is this exact same build that I ran previously and showcased for you all, which is the Bone Spear comboed with the Corpse Explosion. That allows you to basically permanently cast massive damage dealing skills and overall give you just massively consistent damage. And if you get next to a wall, you will burst things down, which I'll show you here while doing this event. Overall, I think a lot of people are comparing the Necromancer, which, to be fair, was stronger because of the summons being unkillable in the previous betas, but so was pretty much every other class, except for maybe Druid. Druid got a pretty decent buff, and outside of that, I don't really know of a class that feels stronger than the previous beta. So not only did every class get nerfed in terms of overall strength, but also Necromancer in particular, their summons were some of the most broken things in the game. And so people are comparing it to that when that's not even the same game we're playing anymore. The whole game is completely changed in terms of the balance of the classes and how the abilities kind of interact with each other. The legendary drops are no longer something that you could instantly find. And in fact, some classes have some really good options in the beta, and some classes have 0 options in the beta for some builds. So again, I think people are drawing some immediate conclusions to where it's not even a problem in the early game. Again, yes, the summons might be a little bit more killable. And you can even see here, I'm walking around and I'm running the defenders, and yeah, the summons are dying, but not like every 2 seconds. I could easily summon them back very, very quickly and have no issues whatsoever. Granted, when you're starting to fight world bosses, that's a little bit of a different scenario, and that's where summons do end up being a lot worse. However, you can work around that and actually adapt your Book of the Dead to run things like, for example, Harvester Skeleton Warriors, or Reapers rather, so you can actually pull corpses off the boss and then summon more. The problem is that people are so focused in on what was good previously, and they're repeating that they're oftentimes basically calling the Necromancer trash, when in fact they have plenty of options, right? They have the defenders, which are really, really solid in terms of defensive options. The Reapers still generate corpses, which you're allowed to generate more summons that way if they die, which they will. A lot of the core skills are still extremely good. Again, you have many, many options. Almost any of them are viable. Sever doesn't do quite as much damage as Bone Spear. Bone Spear is by far the highest DPS skill, especially with the buffs. But you have things like Blood Lance that are still options, Blood Surge options with the new Blood Orb mechanics, Blight or even Sever are all nice options, which you will have guaranteed access to, as I mentioned earlier. So I wanted to mention this because I don't understand how people are claiming the Necromancer is trash. It did get nerfed in terms of the summons, but so did every other class. The game got nerfed. That's just what happened. I don't know. I don't think Necromancer is by far the worst class. In fact, I think it probably is the best leveling class if you decide to go with specific builds. If you don't decide to go with a specific build, then no class is the best. You can just run whatever you want. Pretty much any class has any option, and I've tried all of them because I maxed out every class, and I haven't had too many issues. Is the game harder? Yes, absolutely. Is it a bad thing? Well, that's opinion. I'm personally an enjoyer of the new difficulty. I haven't played on World Tier 1 almost at all, so I can't really say how easy or difficult it is on World Tier 1. What I will say is on World Tier 2, it's really not too much more difficult in terms of what it was before, once you start generating some builds and really start to get familiar with your class. What I will say is that the legendary drops are significantly lower, so people were getting OP fast, and now they're not. And that does feel a little off. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section down below about these changes. This is just my opinion at the end of the day, and I'm very open to hearing some of the more argumented, I guess you say logical arguments that I've seen some people make about the summons. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.